And thank you everyone so much for joining in for the second episode of our Deepening Our Connection with the Laws of Creation. My name is Brendon, and with us here today, we have our presenter, Iain Grae, and our executive producer, my son, River. And yeah, we're going to get right into things. I know for today's episode, we're going to be continuing off where we left off from last time, but this time we're going a little bit deeper. We're getting into the idea of the laws of action, correspondence, cause and effect, also known as the universal feedback loop. So again, in the previous episode, we were introducing a lot of the concepts related to sacred geometry and the Fibonacci sequence and how those can be applied to a deeper understanding of our own place within this reality and how to be able to, again, become masters of our destiny. So Iain himself, again, is an amazing person who is both an entrepreneur from a young age, a master of many crafts, a father as well, and has a lot of wisdom. And he's very passionate, like many of us, to be able to help assist and accelerate with the collective shift in consciousness. So I'll pass it over to Iain and we'll just kind of chit chat for a little bit. And I know our time today, I think we have an hour and 45 minutes, and Iain's got a beautiful presentation set ahead of us. So Iain, I'll pass it over to you and we can maybe just kind of set things up and then we'll go from there.
Absolutely. So I'm going to share the screen here and thank you so much for that great introduction. I really appreciate it. We had a lot of fun that last session that we did here, and we built a nice foundation. So we're going to build upon that and go into more laws and this section of the laws that I call it the universal feedback loop, because it actually gives us information two-directional. So we're also going to just do a quick recap as well. So if you missed it before, we're going to just touch on some things. You'll be able to stay along with us, and we're going to kind of hit them a little different ways so that you'll see it in a different way if you did watch it before, and hopefully something great will come of that. So here we are, and thank you for being here. And why would you want to even be here in the first place? Why would you want to know about the universal feedback loop? So let me just say, if you've ever sent out a prayer and you want it to be answered so badly, and just think about a time when this has happened and bam, something happened, a light flickered, a wind blew, a phone call came in, and you're like, oh my gosh, my prayer was responded to. And maybe even that phone call, the person says something and it was just what you needed to hear in that moment. You wanted that prayer answered so badly, and boom, here, your prayer was completely answered. And you got guidance on what to do next. So if you've ever experienced something like that, and I think most of us have, then you've actually used this feedback loop. But what about those times you didn't get a response? Were you asking in the same way? What was different? Were you looking for the answer in the same way? And, what about that time you're actually in a situation right then and there, and you're like feeling like, why is this happening right now? Like, what did I do to deserve this? What is going on? Well, the feedback loop is also available in those moments. So we can use it in present time, and we can use it to get clarity on situations in past and potential futures that we might actually see. So that allows us to stay in a high state of flow, clear-minded, and inspired to do what we're called to do. And with that comes this confidence. So life becomes significantly easier as confidence becomes exuded. And we know the difference that confidence makes. So that's why we would want to do this. I'm going to give you a quick overview of what it is, and then we'll keep moving on here. So the universal feedback loop is one of nature's ways of building in a process of communication. This allows, at like a top high level, the creator itself to experience its creation and even manipulate it with attention and intention. So by knowing these laws that are used, we can also tap into this energy. So our external world is like a built-in mirror of an internal world. So have you ever heard of that? This is all a reflection, it's an illusion, it's a mirror, it's a matrix. This is what I'm talking about, this veil. So the laws of action, correspondence, and cause and effect, they actually demonstrate how our internal world ultimately manifests our perception of our external reality. So that's what the loop does. That's what it is, in a technical way of saying it. So before we actually get into it, we're going to actually just take care of some housekeeping items and get everybody set up. So right now, get yourself a pen and pad. We're going to have some prompts. And if you don't have a pen and pad, you can use a note on your phone or your laptop, whatever you're watching from. And the more you actually participate in that, the more you're going to get out of it. Because we're going to actually use prompts. We can apply these immediately in our lives and actually improve our quality of lives through this. Get yourself some water, snacks, or anything that you need to be more comfortable. This is the time to do it. You might be on the edge of your seat and not want to step away from some of this stuff. And of course, I kind of mentioned to it there in the first one, the more you participate in this, the more you're going to get out of it. So get ready to participate. Start thinking about what you want to get out of this. I'll give you a quick overview of the topics and the order we're going to go here. We're going to do a quick opening ceremony. I'll tell you who I am real quickly. We'll do a quick recap. And then we're going to dive into the laws of action, correspondence, and cause and effect. And then we're going to see how they work together and create this feedback loop that I'm talking about here. And I'm sure you've seen it, and you might not just call it this. You might have experienced it as something else. I'm sure you've felt this in some way and experienced it. So then with that, we're going to look at some real life scenarios and how by using the feedback loop, we look at them differently and our behavior will change as a result. And that behavior that changes is going to change the effect that we have in the world, that we actually can create things much more harmoniously, continuously. It's a real magical thing. So that's what we're going to go through today. And here we are for the opening ceremony here today. First thing, I'm just going to ask you, commit to engaging. So this isn't just participation, but this is I'm going to watch this and I'm going to pay attention to it. I'm going to practice, use this as a practice for my ability to pay attention to something and hold my attention on something, not get a text message, not get into Messenger or Instagram or something else on the side. Just commit to it, seeing if you can engage in it, because you'll get so much out of it just by exercising that kind of concentration and attention. And I'd like to do a quick check-in here, and we'll do a little breathing and stretching while we do this check-in. So just let's get us all on the same vibration, right? We're going to get us in harmony. We're already in a certain level of harmony because we are here. We were drawn to this broadcast, right? Me to create it, you guys to watch it and participate in it. So there's something we have commonality, right? But we all have our busyness and our things happening in our lives. So let's do a little bit to get ourselves in harmony with each other. So first of all, let's just close our eyes and just drop our shoulders, put our hands down on our lap. And just kind of observe what's going on inside. Just start noticing the breathing that you have going on right now. And start to make a belly breath if you're not already breathing into the belly, and inhale through the nose. And just notice what's going on in the body, how it rises and falls on the exhale. You notice your bones going up and down and your muscles stretching, contracting. And breathing in, just soften them now on the next exhale. Just check in with your body. Is there anywhere that's any tension? I need some attention. And just breathe into that place. Let it go with your next exhale. And just turn your attention to your thinking mind as you breathe in. And hold at the top. And just notice what we're thinking. What's our mind like? Is it calm? Is it busy? Is there a looping thought? And just let go with the next exhale. One more time. Just letting go of the happenings of the day, the to-do list of tomorrow, and just coming into right now. Now, the next inhale, just check the emotional state. How am I feeling? Just whatever it is, let it go. Set an intention of how you'd like to feel as you're letting it go, and inhale that with that intention in mind, that feeling that you so much desire. With your eyes closed, continue breathing. Just bring the shoulders up to your ears. Make a little stretch here. Just drop them down. Take a breath in and make any adjustments to your spine to have a straight back. Reach the arms over the head and stretch up to the sky. And exhale and stretch to the left. Inhale, back up. Stretch to the right. Inhale, back up. Drop your hands down. Keep them at your heart for a moment here and just think about for a moment. We're going to be together for about an hour and a half more. What would you like to have the outcome of this be? Is where in your life would you like to see this implemented? What's your mindset about this? And how do you think you get the most out of it? And just set whatever your intention is for this. Let's take one last breath into that intention. And exhale. Drop the hands down. Just rub your legs. Start to come back into your body, however that process is for you. Maybe stretch the hands, maybe do some twists, open the eyes up, get back into the body, but still maintain this sense of presence that we do when we're in the breath. Just feel into that for just a moment. I'd like to share with you my intention for a moment with this. My intention is to be able to help anyone to experience more flow in their life and find more harmony and peace and that enjoyment that we can have, and get into that optimal state more often and closer to that. So my intention is that you experience this out of this. If you want that, if you don't want that for you, then all cool as well. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I said last time, I'm many roles and I'm not defined by them. That's the way I think we roll through life, is we roll through life. We play different roles depending on the circumstances we're in. And these are just some of the things that I'm into. And you get to know a little bit more about who I am. So I'll just kind of run through it. First and foremost, important to me is family. I'm a family guy. God, of course. So sometimes I think that's unsaid, because it just is. And then family, like I love my family, and doing that whole dad thing. And that wasn't always a role that would have been a good role for me, but turns out now it is. I do coaching. I lead meditations, breath practices, sacred sound healing journeys, and all that kind of stuff. So that's another dimension to me, right? I've written books and I've really loved doing that. And this Heaven on Earth book that I wrote, I use it myself to get the life that I have. I swear by it. And I even race motorcycles, surf, and do that kind of adrenaline type stuff. I've also had businesses, master's degree, all that stuff. So I have a lot of different dimensions to me and how I actually see things. And I think that's important to know, because we got to look at everything from our dimensions. And it's good for you to know that this is the lens I'm seeing the world through. So That being said, let's just do a recap of last session and dive into all the new stuff. And again, if this is just a reminder for you, listen with new ears. You may find something new. And I'm just take a quick sip of water. Thank you for your patience. It's kind of awkward sucking out of a straw like that alive. Kind of funny. Any case, so the reminders, the recap. Let's get into it. So in part one, we discussed sacred geometry and how it showed up in all things in nature. And why is it important? Why is sacred geometry important in the model of the laws of the universe? Well, it gives us a way to illustrate how laws manifest from the spiritual world to the physical world mathematically. So it allows us to understand concepts that are beyond the sight of the eye or the hearing of the ear. We discussed its relationship previously to form, shape, growth, and animation, and that these patterns are a part of us. They're in our bodies, it's in our art, it's in our culture, it's in our movement. They are everywhere. And as we see these, we learn more and more about how this oneness unfolds into so much more. So it shows us with these patterns how it unfolds from this oneness. What one could say is how laws would be created by God. These patterns is what actually creates law. So if we can look at how they manifest, these patterns manifest in our three-dimensional physical world, and know that they also manifest similarly in the higher dimensions or the meta dimensions, the beyond dimensions, then we can now apply them in our inner workings so that everything's this beautiful message of a feedback loop here that we're going to end up talking about. So the first thing I talked about was the flower of life. And the key things to know about this is this flower of life is like the framework that holds all possibility of existence. It gives us two dimensions. It gives us a single dimension at the center of it, right? If we look at the center point of it, that is a single dimension. That's it. That's the isness. And then as it unfolds out, it gives us our length and width. So we're now in a two-dimensional reality as we look at this imagery. So it gives rise to space, and that gives rise to time. So it's really kind of a beautiful thing. And even if you condense it down by adding the 19 circles around the outside, that reduces down. 1 + 9 is 10, and 1 + 0 is 1. So you come back to that unity figure, unity in code. One in code, means a yes. Yes, this exists. So there's a lot to be said here with this. It's important to know this is just a basic kind of framework. And then we have the Fibonacci sequence, or phi, or golden ratio. When we tie this in, we start to see animation happen. This means that there can be growth and also movement. So it's a pretty cool pattern to see in nature. We'll take a couple looks here right now. So first, just look at this shell here. We can see how when this is in a life form, we can see how it creates this depth into it, right? It looks like we can look into it. And if we switch our looking, actually, it can even look like it's coming out to us. Right. So, and that's in the Fibonacci sequence there, right? And that creates that illusion of depth and width. It creates that third dimension for us having this. So now we have a 3D experience. So this shows up like in the wave. You see movement, and you see breakdown, you see rebirth. You see this also in the wind is this way as well. Then we see this in trees. This is one of my favorite plants because I can see this so clearly here, how this works. And this specific growth pattern is designed to optimize sun exposure and water capture, not by accident. This is just the reality. This is nature's design, right? Spiritual manifesting itself into a physical form. And here we see it again on this plant. And you can also kind of see the flower of life in here. So it's really beautiful because you get to see both of these kind of laid out here, and you can see very obviously how that design would work to bring all of the water from the outside to the inside in a maximum feature, and capture as much sunlight as possible. So we look for like this is harmonious when we see this stuff. It's got this beautiful symmetry to it that nature creates. And it's this odd number, the golden ratio. Another thing I just wanted to share with you too is here how even temporary things manifest through this crystalline form. And this here is the flower of life broken down to Metatron's cube. We got into that a little bit more last time. I just wanted to show it because this is how nature creates. It's like literally going from water vapor to this crystalline form, ice crystals. And you can see it's like, that's its creation. It's like giving birth to this thing. It's amazing, but it's doing it in this pattern that we're talking about, right? And it's very one-dimensional, or sorry, two-dimensional. A snowflake, if it was three-dimensional, we probably see some of this Fibonacci sequence in it. Then we also see beauty and symmetry, right? We see it in our bodies and we see it in our movements. If you are a swimmer or a speed walker, or ever saw this, you see this motion on the hips. This is how we actually go through the world in these spirals. All these spirals stem out from a oneness source. Okay, so that's this gives us a gift of seeing unity in everything in the physical world. So now we can actually move into conversation about what the law of divine oneness is here. So the law of divine oneness states that everything stems from a singular source. There's only one source, and that source is unified. And it's interesting because I hear sometimes people in different religious beliefs say this is not the truth, and this is not, you're not one with God. But then we look at the Bible and Torah, and we would hear that God is omnipresent and omnipotent, all-knowing. So he's on all the spiritual planes. And omnipresent, meaning he would be on all the physical planes and everywhere and everything. So if that's the case, then all of humanity and all of God are one. We are still part of that experience. We're always connected to that force of God because the energy of God is everywhere at once and it permeates through all things, including us. So that's kind of my logic behind it here. But you get to see how everything folds out from this oneness in this beautiful flower. And everything that exists, seen and unseen, are connected to each other inseparably. So it's that life force or God force. Everything is one. So when we actually begin to see that this exists in everything seen and unseen, we can see the divine matrix, the all-knowing, the pure consciousness, or the pure universal mind. Sometimes, what we end up looking at is the things that we say, we do, and we believe, and then we start to realize that the impact they have on others and the world that they have, this impact on everything that comes out and everything we're around. And as we begin to comprehend this law, we get a deeper understanding of our connection to all things. This allows us to work deeper in harmony with that source in God. So we want to have this connection and see where we come from in this source and see our relationship to it and see that we aren't separated. It's part of us. So we're going to use, right now, we perceive different points of oneness. We use different vibrations. We use our light waves. We use sound waves, or electrical hertz and other currents, which bring us to the next law, which is the law of vibration. So we go from this oneness, and then now to perceive this oneness, we are using a vibrational field, okay? This gives us something to perceive in some way, and we're perceiving everything through vibration. So the law of vibration posits that everything, every single atom, every single object, every living thing is in constant motion, vibrating at a specific frequency. And that frequency is malleable, will change. It's that motion that we're talking about, but those frequencies always exist, and it's constantly in this vibration form. And the form that we would see in the physical world is actually a result of the frequency that they're vibrating at. Our ability to even perceive them, they'd have to be in a certain frequency, a range of perception that we have. So everything that we perceive is a vibration. And there's a whole lot of vibrations we don't perceive. So like I said, we receive all of our senses is in vibration. So we have our light waves, we have our sound waves, we have our emotion, right? Our which is energy and motion, is like an electrical force. Our touch, our smell, they're also perceived through vibration. And if we think about the 7 primary colors, if we just looked at them independently, we would see that they each have their own frequency or range of vibration. And if we combine them all, we get white, representing the oneness. And we remove them, we get black, or the representation of noneness. So we don't have time to demonstrate all of these things here. But I wanted to just give you guys a little bit of a bullet list on important things to know about vibration, because they build into the next piece. So these are just reminders to have in your sphere. 1, we talked about it, it's malleable. And we also mentioned, our perception can be altered based on our change in our vibration. The larger or higher our range of vibration, the more perception we're actually going to have. So vibrations that are in harmony are going to perpetuate life and health, while vibrations that are in discord are going to result in disease, right? So in thinking about that, looking at how vibration attached to emotions, and then we'll go on to the law of action here. But if you just were to take a moment and think about when we're depressed, like that word depressed literally means pressed down. Another way we might say is low vibe, right? So when we look at another way of this, if we are enjoying our experience, right? We're literally saying we have or experiencing this inner joy, which we would call high vibe, right? So you could just build upon from there the different range of emotions and see that there is a range. And when we're in this higher vibe, look at how we navigate life. And when we're in that low vibe, it's like it's time to not be doing that thing, where it's time to get out of our funk or whatever it is before we do anything. So if we want to even just look at an experiential level, we can't deny we use our voices to create words, and each sound that we use is a vibration, and that is unique, and it carries information which constantly changes reality. So we can often feel the vibration that is spoken uncovering deeper and hitting meanings, right? The energy that goes along with it. So the oneness ripples out into eternal, infinite vibration. Another thing to really consider is when it's doing that, it doesn't care about good or bad or low or versus high vibe. Like, it doesn't really matter. It's just vibing. And if we take a little bit in our life, that's something that if we just stay in that state, we see things from a different perspective. So I'm just going to plant that little seed here, and we're going to take a look at a scene together. And I just want you guys to get out that notepad. And this is something that we're going to observe this scene. And it's silent, but you can make up your own conversation that's happening and just try to figure out what's going on with these individuals. And we're going to, let's play this real here. This is on a loop, so you're going to get to see this a few times.
Iain, do you want me to add in some dubbing?
Yeah, I would love it.
Okay. Okay. Let me just use my improv skills here. All right. Okay. Just be. I don't think you ever listen to me. Well, I'm always telling you what to do, but maybe if you just pay attention, but maybe it's just you don't explain yourself properly. I feel like we're not communicating with each other properly. There's some sort of mismatch with our vibrations. Maybe we should step back and reevaluate our communication skills. Okay, there, end scene.
You know what? So I love that you did that, and you actually you brought us to where we're going to go with this, right? So we can see all the things that are happening here, right? We see all the body language, we see the hands moving, we see how even like the words that somebody says, like almost like knock somebody back, right? And you see the eye rolls and all these gestures, but they're not the things that are really creating the issue. And that's what I wanted to pose it here, is like, that's what a lot of times, like, you rolled your eyes at me, you made this look at me. And I wanted to point that out here, right? And see how that's like that first layer that a lot of times people jump onto. And as we look at these laws, we're going to see how we can use them to actually increase our communication. So I love that you just dropped that in. Thank you. So let's take some action and get to the next one here and look at the laws of action, correspondence, and cause and effect. And you can even just see in this image, just like think physically what's happening here, what you see, right? And then you can actually go deeper and look at the rhythm of the individual and how they're going. And you can start to see that there's a little bit more going on than just the physical thing that you actually see, the impact and the rebound and cause and effect and the action and taking place. So one of the things, to me, the law of action is maybe the most interesting of the laws, at least at this point in my life, because the idea is by taking on an action while we're holding on to a thought vibration, we're actually going to be able to make it manifest more quickly. And it's not just a thought vibration, it's also an emotional vibration. We have different parts of us that we need to get alignment and harmony. And the law of action states for anything to manifest on earth, the necessary actions must be performed. And if we look just at the language, the word act, right, means to move or to draw forth. And I think about film and theater and hearing a director on set yell action, right? Like this is how life kind of works in a way. Like it's time to go, that's action, we take the action. So if we look at this film here, we see that we have actors who intentionally are implanted to create a scene, and several scenes compose an act or part of the show, right? If the actors know their role, we're going to have an awesome show. It's going to be great. If they pull it all off, it's going to be cohesive. It could be a masterpiece. But if they don't, it could be a disaster. The whole show, if they don't know their part, the show will fall apart. And what's happening with us is we're looking to take action consistently to improve our quality of lives, right? That's something we know that we can do through action. We can get things done. But what ends up happening a lot of times is, for many people, it seems like they're just born without the script. We're in situations that we don't know our roles. We don't know how to play things out. We didn't get a manual beforehand, but there is actually a built-in script, and that's what the next two laws actually start to reveal to us. So the action, though, that we take is merely the trigger effect in this feedback loop that I'm talking about. And it actually allows us to help piece together the puzzle of what the heck is happening around us. So it's actually a way that we can now start to respond to it and make changes at a higher level than just watching our precision when we're throwing the darts and learning how to move our arm properly. We now learn on the inner workings. So let's just do this for a moment, and I'm gonna start to kind of just take you down a path. And if you could just shine me on again and close your eyes, right? And just imagine a vibrational wave in your mind. And just to throw something in there for you guys with a little bit of direction, like maybe an image of a sound wave, right? Maybe it's even a movie. But now if I say the word clay while you're looking at that image, there might be some kind of transformation. And what does that image change to? What do you see? Do you think of a bed of dried clay? Probably not, maybe. But if I'm more detailed and say clay pot, I've now compressed this idea even further, and I'm giving you an additional sound vibration, right? So now you're going to picture something hopefully more accurate, right? So maybe this is what you saw. Maybe it's a little bit closer. And just as the words clay pot are a vibration, this image itself is a vibration. Each one of these things is in a certain frequency of existence. However, the image that we're seeing here is merely the light waves that we're perceiving. And what I said was the sound waves. So if I say something even more detailed, right? If I'm going to just one more example here, shine me on. Picture a side shot of so make sure you close your eyes for this. You're going to picture a side shot of a brown clay pot, growing some green aloe, spiraling around it. And you can open your eyes. Is this more what you saw in your mind? So you can see how just the additional vibrations being paired together start to create some kind of harmony, some kind of agreement, and makes an image real in our mind. That's just by the action of speaking, but still not physically real. And even this image itself is made up of light vibrating, right? But the picture is worth 1,000 more words. So you know what I'm talking about, but it's still not real. It's still not, it hasn't manifested into the physical. It's just a picture of something here. And we can probably see it pretty much the same, but who's to know we see green differently, or one of us colorblind. That's what happens. So that's because we've only looked for it and we've only spoke about it. So it's like the precursor to an actual manifestation. It's still an action, but it's not actually going to be manifesting, because if we want to make things real, we have to use these things. We have to use these things. We have to use our hands. Because action is a way of compressing down a thought vibration into a manifestation. So at first, that vibration gets more clear. The more we talk, the more we show. And then when we start taking physical action, it becomes solidified, it becomes made manifest. So the word manifest itself comes from manus and festus. So manus means hand, festus is to infest. We have to use our hands. We have to take action, or some action has to occur. It might not even be us, right? So that's what's going to, if you want it to happen in the physical world, and even making a phone call requires our hands. So sometimes it seems so obvious, but somehow we make missteps and we take wrong actions. So how does that all happen, right? How do we get off the path here? And we're going to get back on the path, but we're going to get off the path for a second. Right? It's so obvious, but what do? Well, first we avoid things. We take no action. We find distractions. We literally take ourselves off our course. The word dis means not, or off, or to remove. And the word tract literally means course. So we're removing ourselves from our course when we're distracting ourselves. So that's anything that takes us off our path. Now, that's not to say you can't recreate and watch TV or do whatever else. The thing to point out here is to really remind ourselves to maybe ask ourselves the question, is this action part of the course that's going to lead me to my outcome that I desire most, right? And if not, you can still be okay with it, right? But then you also will know there's a voice inside that says, hey, it's time to get up. So, and that might mean you have to tune in first, right? And get in alignment. The other way that's most commonly out there, and this might be people that you know too. So this is not just I'm not throwing this and projecting this on you. You probably see this, right? The other way is sedation, right? So sedation really actually literally means to sit or to settle. So this crazy, busy, insane world that we live in, that everybody talks about being so nutty, we find ways to calm ourselves. Who would blame us, right? But again, resting is not a bad thing. It is a necessary part of our living. But we know when we're doing something to sedate in an effort to avoid looking at reality and taking the required actions to circumstances. Really, we're doing inaction. We have an opposite law. So we've all done it. We've all avoided having a conversation that we needed to have. We put off what needed to be done, or we didn't take our chance. Right? We've all done that. That's fine. It's cool. That's part of learning about this stuff. But what do we have in place that keeps us on path? Well, we're going to talk about that through this feedback loop here. So, and of course, there's also healthy ways to calm ourselves with meditation, breath work, tapping, but we're going to get into that a little bit later here. So the reality is, when we take action without resolving things on our inner conflicts, we're going to create outer missteps. That's what's going to happen here. And we're not even necessarily really realizing we're doing it. And these are the misguided actions, I call them. It's the sneaky way that we miss the law of action. So we could think about it, how we're going to do something and build a method. We could read a book about it, and then we can go implement the same thing as somebody else, and we get a totally different outcome. Maybe we even make things worse. Right? Have you ever had that happen to you, where like you start a conversation with somebody with like full intentions of deepening the relationship or bringing peace and harmony in the relationship, and all of a sudden they were yelling at you, or you were yelling at them, or somebody across the street was yelling at you, or something worse ensued? Like this happens. So that will happen if we're internally out of alignment. So we could even do the right things, but it just sounds funny the way it comes out. So our emotional states, our belief systems, our looping thoughts, even our muscle memory, and how, like, you've seen me moving my hand here probably a lot. Probably have noticed that. Right? That's my muscle memory coming in. I feel this coming through, and I feel really good about it. And it feels like it's flowing for me, right? But if I'm not in that state, and there's been moments even throughout this where like I stumbled for a second, and I started to feel that closing off, where I started making it worse, and I had to take a breath for a second, right? And just pause and reset. So if we're in the state of fear or depressed or angry, the actions we're going to take are going to exacerbate the situation, because our subconscious mind is the majority of our thinking. All of our belief systems, all of our resolved traumas can lead us to unwittingly make the same mistakes over and over again. And if we're worried about violence and in fear, the actions we're even going to take are going to be few. And if we do, they're going to be not very impactful. And even at worst case scenarios, we get feeling like we're railroaded by the happenings of life. And it will feel like life is happening to us versus for us. So having very clear alignment, which is where we're going to talk about correspondence here in a moment, really allows our actions to get cleared up. And our actions are reflections of our subconscious thinking. So how do we get those into alignment? How do we get ourselves into alignment? Let's talk about that for a moment, because it's important. So it's loading. There we go. So we have to align the different parts of ourselves to the same cause. Just like when we're gonna, clap our hands. The first time we did it, we might have had to look at our hands until we got a proficiency at it, right? When we focus on something and we look at it, we're looking with our eyes, and then we can touch it. And we're aligning our eyes and our hands together, and we might be listening for any sounds that might be affecting it, or whatever else might be, feeling for wind, any of those things. Well, we can do this also on the internal world here. So how many times have you heard somebody say something like, I know what my heart wants, but my head is telling me something totally different, right? Like you probably said it. I know I've said it. I know I've said it many times, right? And it seems so strange that I feel so in alignment now. So, but that's a way of being out of alignment. So being conscious of our inner world helps us to make aligned choices and take actions which allow us to change the trajectory of our life. So if you haven't done a deep dive in that psychological thriller that is in the mind, I urge you to do it. It's a ride. It's a ride. But I'm sure many of you already know and have done a lot of this stuff and have methodologies around like belief hacking or overcoming this kind of stuff, whether it's EMDR or tapping or anything else. So we have a program called Empowered Life at Evolve Life. And it's all about this as a complete methodology. So if you don't have one, you're going to want to check it out. But if you do, this is going to be very helpful in exposing. You already know 90% of what I'm talking about up until now. This tool is going to expose all those things that were hidden in the shadows. So let's talk. What is scripture? I wanted to bring some scripture. Some people ask for some scripture to be brought into this. So I want to say, what does scripture have to say about the law of action here? So I'm going to take another sip here. So as you can see, I have Luke 8:5 here. So in this passage, the Bible is discussing perseverance in action. So a farmer went out to sow his seed. I'm going to read it to you. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path. It was trampled on. The birds ate it. Some fell on the rocky ground. And when it came up, the plants withered because they had no moisture. Other seed fell among the thorns, which grew up, but it got choked. And still others got on good soil. And it came up and yielded a crop 100 times more than was sown. So there's so many ways to perceive this passage, and it's got a lot of messages in it. That's one of the most beautiful things about reading scripture. But right now we're talking about action. So I'm going to look at it from that frame. So if a farmer wants a crop, he has to plant his seeds. He has to take the action of planting the seeds, right? If no seed is sown, there will be no harvest. It will not happen. And in order for one crop to sprout, it might take many actions that seemed like they were unfruitful, right? But the one that is actually successful is more abundant than the entire energy that's been put into it, and just more than he even needs. So that's one of the key components to look at this from and realize we're going to be taking several actions. And the more actions we're going to take, the more in harmony we're going to get, because the actions are the trigger effect, right? They're a trigger effect. So if we think about that as the trigger effect, our actions, we are the first mover, or what Aristotle calls the prime mover. Our consciousness, the choice that I make, the next movement I make, when I consciously choose to do it, I say, I'm going to put my hand over here, right? That is me being the first or the prime mover. And our physical actions will set physical changes in motion. And when we accept the responsibility that comes along with the privilege of actually being the first mover and being able to do that choice, we can start to create a lot more harmony in our lives, because it's not just in the physical, it's also in the spiritual. And if we're not liking what we've seen in our lives, it becomes time to assess why before we take more action and create a bigger mess. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to be looking at the law of correspondence to see exactly how do we get the message. And write down some notes here. Like, even if you like the outcomes that you're experiencing right now, like, you can take down notes just in case you forget, or you need to help explain to somebody else, or maybe you mold it together and something magical comes when it's written down here. So we can always, even when we're in a great place, be looking at this law of correspondence to revisit and master our action taking. So the law of correspondence, as within, so without, as above, so below. What this means is that our outer world is a reflection of our inner world. So this is like the universe's way of showing us what our inner world looks like. So if we can look at how apply this to our lives for a moment, just think about, like, there's things that you're naturally good at, and there's things that maybe require you to refine your skills. It happens to all of us. So the correspondence is the first responder. It's the first bit of feedback that we get from our mental and physical actions. So the action is the trigger, and the correspondence is the feedback. It's like yes, no, good, bad, whatever way you frame on it. So if we look at the word correspondence, the word respond is right in the center of it, right? But somehow we miss it. And the word correspond itself actually means to be in agreement and to be in harmony with, right? So we want to have agreement and harmony, right? So, and respondere in French is to answer, which I thought was very interesting because it means we're getting a response, right? It's showing us again. And you could think about a correspondent, one who communicates with another. So the law of correspondence really allows us, or allows the universe to show us what we're experiencing in our spiritual world by displaying it out here on the physical world. This is the mirror that we talk about. And we touched on this a little bit when we talked about the law of action. We talked about how the beliefs in subconscious actually impact what actions we're taking as well. And if we're unaware of this law, our perception of our outer world may cause us to feel like the world is happening to us. And this feeling is actually the catalyst. So if that's happening for you, or anybody that you know that that's happening for, celebrate, because this is a catalyst that actually says, I want to see. It allows us to seek and to actually see through the illusions. So this law of correspondence is that mirror effect that's going to tell you more about what's on your inner world than you could ever think about without it. So if we're unaware of this law, we might feel like we're trapped, and we actually are trapped, and we're stuck by illusions. We get stuck in looping thoughts, and we create a psychological thriller within our minds that has nothing to do with reality. You've met people like this, or you've heard about people like this before. Their version of reality is so far removed from what you experienced, and one of you is clearly very insane. So this happens, if it happens to you all the time, it might want to look at the common denominator, right? But each belief we have is reflected back to us in some way by everything that's around us. Everything we believe to be true, that's activated in that moment. So we're constantly receiving correspondence from the universe. So if we were to picture our outer world like a 360-degree mirror everywhere we look, we will see ourselves reflected back, some part of ourself, right? Wherever we go, there we are. Our outer world is merely that expression of our thoughts, our beliefs, our feelings, and so forth. So when we change our inner world, that means we will immediately start to change how we are experiencing that outer world. And that means we can change how we respond to it more intelligently, and our actions are going to be more in alignment. And this will happen cumulatively, and those changes will be extremely impactful in the future. So what happens sometimes? Well, I'm going to talk to you a little about scripture here. I'm going to read some scripture, but what happens a lot of times for people is it's much easier to cast blame on external circumstance than actually accept that it is a mirror, right? So when we're looking in a mirror and we see something on our face, maybe we have some lipstick on our face and we don't want it there, we don't put our rag to the mirror and try to wipe it off the mirror. That would be futile. But all too often we try to blame and project it out to this thing out here, instead of saying, oh, wait, that is showing me I've got some makeup on my face and I got to clean it off, right? Some lipstick. So, when we actually look at ourselves and clean up our own flaws and sins and illusions, then we can see more clearly. And that's what this passage is going to be about here. And I'm just going to drop it to you 1 second. And once that's done, we're going to find that the issues that we thought that were actually from out there, issues we thought we had were, I'm going to say 99.9% of them were all illusions, a result of our own projection. So this is talked about in the Bible in Luke 6.42. And I just came across this passage just the other day. So here we go. How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when you yourself fail to see the plank in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. And right here, it's just straight up like the brother is being questioned. Why are you projecting this issue onto me? Look in the mirror, fool. Like this is you. And this is right in the eye to imply faulty vision, right? For to say, realize what you're looking at is a reflection, and whatever you see out there that's even greater inside of you, right? So that's what I hear when I read this. So there's a few things to be aware of before we go in and say we're going to try to use this law of correspondence effectively, just really helpful tools. There's a concept called conscious competence, unconscious competence, unconscious incompetence, and conscious incompetence, right? So I'm going to break down what those are. So the things that we're good at and we know that we're good at, that is conscious competence. The things that we are not so good at and we know we're not so good at, that's conscious incompetence. But if we don't know that we're bad and we think that we are also bad, maybe we don't even know what it is, that's unconscious incompetence. And then we have, of course, the unconscious incompetence, right? So what we're going to have is anytime there's incompetence, we want to be able to elevate that. And anytime there's no consciousness, we need to bring that to awareness, because when we bring that to awareness, now we can start to align ourselves and create methodologies and make our lives flow more easily. So that's what the correspondence tool is really. A law of correspondence is a tool that allows us to bring all the unconscious to conscious so we can actually add more harmony into our lives. So this is a model that I've been working on that I want to share with you and just how this actually works. So the premise is our perspective is a reflection of our own projection. So our perspective, what is our perspective made? Actually, before I even get into our perspective, let's look at this diagram here. So just imagine yourself as the golden person in the center. Of course, you're golden, right? And then above you is an example of some event that happened. And then the white person is a conversation that's happened, right? So we know that our perspective is made up of our subconscious. 95% of our observation is made by our subconscious mind. So our conversation, gold and white here, what we think the other person said is including all of our judgments, all our beliefs, all our traumas, all our prejudices, all learnings from previous situations. It's a limited viewpoint. And the limited viewpoint helps us to navigate the situation in so many ways. But anything that's unconscious of us could potentially be undermining us, right? So we have a conversation with a friend about work, and our entire viewpoint about their job is impacted by our beliefs about their work system. So, or our work, right? How our job goes, what we believe about work in general. We haven't, maybe another time, we haven't been honest with somebody, right? And we're not honest with somebody about something, and all of a sudden friction starts to ensue in the relationship. What's going on there? Like all of a sudden, why does it just happen magically when there's a little bit of dishonesty? Like, boom, all of a sudden the relationship just starts withering, right? Something between us. Or we make a judgment about someone's clothes, and it's actually because we're not happy with our own outfit. right? And now we miss the opportunity to make a more friend. But these are all just our perspectives that we have in those situations. And I'm using limiting beliefs here as examples because they're just more poignant, right? We could have the same scenario where we see somebody and we love their outfit and it draws us to them, and we're a social person and we make a new friend, right? But that's because of our belief system. So that would be, if we know we're that way, we're consciously competent. If we don't know we're that way, then we're unconsciously competent in it. But what ends up happening is these are the perspectives in our situations, in all of our situations. All these perspectives that are happening are just actually a reflection of us inside our beliefs. So if we navigate our lives based on this, it starts to bring us to the idea of our reflection and what we can do with that reflection, that information that we receive in the communication. So the feelings and memories that surface the moment we're in a reflection, it's revealing our internal beliefs. So this gives us an opportunity to see how we're actually creating the illusion that we're in. Because again, remember, this is all an illusion. Sometimes it's easy to forget that because we're talking about action, but it's still at source an illusion. So as we see through the illusions of situations, we start to begin to harmonize with more accurate picture of what is. So that conversation will go from judging myself and then projecting on somebody else by judging their outfit in that one scenario. It will go to, oh my gosh, I love what you're wearing. And you're going to be in vibe and make a friend, if that's what the universe calls for. So that's what starts to happen when we start getting in harmony. So that brings us to our projection, because we start to realize that it was our inner world projecting the entire story the whole time. And when we start to realize that, we find peace. So I'm going to give you an example of a commonly missed out way on the law of correspondence. So sometimes when we ignore our feelings is an obvious way we miss out on correspondence. We're not even paying attention to the information that's inside of us. And I probably should have even dedicated a slide to this because it's such a big thing. People push down their feelings. So if that's something that's happening, that's information being given to us. Every single emotion, every single thought, every single feeling is information about us and what's going on inside. So it's probably the most common way that we get lost in the illusion. But the second one is this subject of blaming or projecting. We don't take responsibility for our own self, and then we look for someone else to blame. And we start saying things like, you make me feel. Instead of saying things to the communication a little bit that Brendon alluded to earlier, is we can say something more like, when I heard you say this, the universe showed me I had a feeling of blank inside, or some variation like this, right? We might even find that that's not even what the person said, right? And we might have misheard them, or they might hear it back and need to update it. You know, another thing that we hear people say is, you did that because, instead of something like, how are you feeling? Like, instead of actually asking how one's feeling and diving in, there was a projection, and the projection, you did that because, like, how does somebody mind read somebody and actually know why somebody actually did something a certain way? Like, that is fantasy land, and it's mental illness, and people do it all the time. And it's, once we see that when we do that, we're actually preventing ourselves from becoming full inside and realizing our own wholeness. This is really powerful stuff. So when we realize that this experience is because our own internal world and not because the other, then we get to shift the conversation. We start to take responsibility and invite the other to help us resolve it. And this leads to authentic communication in our conversations and restores harmony, right? What does correspondence mean, right? To bring harmony. So we've become the correspondent, creating the correspondence. And our voice is actually impactful because we are in a harmonious, aligned vibration. So we're actually harmonizing the vibration in where we are in space and time, while all of this is happening, allowing us to take actions that are going to yield better results. Alternatively, we can go through life feeling irritated. Like you could just say, this guy's crazy, I'm not doing this. We could just go through life. Like if that's the case, go through life irritated, like life's happening to you, like suffering, angry, there's no responsibility taken, and that makes it a lot easier in many ways. But there's that. Maybe that's what somebody else wants. That's not where I'm at. I like to see that we got a little say in what's going on here. It can be guided, and it's a mystery, and trying to solve that riddle is just, even if I'm wrong, at least it's a beautiful thing. So, we do go through that world as it's an angry place. It's not the world, it's us. And when someone else is angry at us, right, we can say, hey, that's their inner world's inability to reconcile the reality I presented them with, right? Oh my gosh, what if we frame it like that? They don't like what I just said. I knew they weren't gonna like what I just said, but that's okay. I'm gonna let them get their thing out, right? So that's one of those things, like saying the truth sets us free, but first it pisses us off. So when we learn to create beliefs that support us in our endeavors, then we start to transform and harmonize our life. So let me give you a example of that, right? So when we're aware of how correspondence works, we can actually direct our inner world to propel us forward. We will feel like a strong desire to pursue some kind of passion. If it's business success, like in this video, we'll put ourselves out there boldly into situations that reveal our self-doubts, our insecurities, whatever it is around money, coworkers, employees, and customers, because they're actually an opportunity for us to clear them out and move beyond them and grow past it. And the more interactions that we have, the more we reveal. And as we become more aware, then we clear them, and our life becomes significantly easier. And we get back to that confidence thing. We become more articulate. We become more comfortable. We pursue our dream, actually, instead of being a victim to self-doubt. So correspondence is a key component, and our potential becomes how much we actually believe in ourselves. And our limit is the amount of energy we're willing to put forth in it. And if you see any of the greats, they always have somebody that believed in them, and they were credit to that person, but they really believed in themselves. That person helped them to believe in themselves. But if they believe in themselves enough, there's other people will believe as well. So another example is if our internal beliefs prioritize our family and maybe our partner, and we'll reflect back. Well, actually, if we prioritize family and we're in a relationship, this is the twin flame thing. Our partner is going to throw in our face the deepest blind spots that we have, our deepest insecurities, our conditioning, and check everything. We are attracted, we'll talk about this in the law of polarity, to opposite polarities, right? So they're gonna mirror back to us, like in many ways, the opposite. And then sometimes it's gonna look like it's the same. We'll get to that later. But it's going to show us such a clear picture of who we are. And there's no hiding. There's no hiding. This is what twin flames do. So using the law of correspondence and this kind of communication, we can create intimacy and bonds that last eternal instead of dysfunctional families. And maybe most importantly, we actually demonstrate a new level of mental health for future generations. What if we have that? How about we have some better health for future generations, right? Emotionally and mentally. So we can also use this law of correspondence in prayer and meditation, as we opened with, right? We talked about saying a prayer. So we can also do it like that, or we could do it as like a way to pull out revelations which come during those conversations. So just a quick reminder to make sure that we use it in this place. When we actually pay attention to what the universe is telling us, whether it's somebody screaming in our faces, right? And we're getting the message, and the message is not the words, it's not the volume, it's not the hand gesture. There's something else going on. What needs to be reconciled? what needs to be reconciled? It's actually not about me. Well, it is about me, but I'm just I just triggered something that I needed to see. And it hurts right now, and I need to deal with this, right? It sucks, but it's showing me something. So the correspondence is the showing of this. This thing I need to look at in the spiritual world. And that's also the same for like when somebody's in my face in love with me, I want to replicate that, right? So we want to take notes of the actions we took that preceded these things to happen. So let's link these laws together. So to activate the law of correspondence, there's got to be an action taking place, right? That's the initiator. Some kind of event, dialogue, something was done. So our perception of that event now, our perception, not what actually happened, right? That's not actually what happened. It's our limited perception allows us to reveal our own feelings and our emotions and our inner dialogue. So our perception is actually happening before the effects, which we'll get into in a moment here. So we're actually creating the outcome because we're seeing a limited viewpoint through our belief systems and all that inner dialogue. So we can sense when there's harmony and disharmony, and each of these is a vibration, and we tap into these laws of vibration and oneness beyond. We got to that correspondence, we create some harmony, right? We see what action led us there. We can follow it back into what vibe we were in, and we can get into the oneness. Or we can go meditate, get into the oneness. So I'm going to pause for a second because we got a little background noise here. Okay, so when we're actually following this back, we can follow it back from the law of correspondence and see how it flows back all the way to the law of oneness, which I just kind of illustrated there. And then we have the law of oneness, where we can see that oneness ripples out into this vibration. That vibration, we look at a specific point in it, or it's compressed so much that it becomes a thing, it becomes a thought idea. Now we take an action, we use something to manifest it, bringing it to the physical form, right? And now from there, we have our perception of that thing, whatever action we took, whatever our feeling from the action, from the vibration that we're in, and the action we took, and when we have a perception of that piece. And with this new awareness, we can take action to resolve issues that may have caused us to activate the law of correspondence again, showing us where we resolve things, and sometimes where there's still some attention to be given in certain areas. So let's move on to the law of cause and effect here. So the law of cause and effect. This law states every cause has its effect and every effect has its cause. So it also says chance is actually just a name for a law that hasn't been recognized yet. So if we look at the actions we take, it's easy to see on the physical planes, cause and effect. Here, you see this happening. And as physics states, in our common sense view of causality, we make two assumptions, right? This is physics, right? So this is not just the laws of the universe, the spiritual principles. Here's your physics principles. Cause always precedes effect in time, and effect is always dependent on the cause. And these assumptions agree in the outer world with our everyday experiences. So here we're seeing this nail being hit with a hammer. Each swing results in a blow that then drives the nail deeper. So it's actually a few actions here: the swing, the blow, and then the space being made for the nail to drive into the wood, so forth. The hit happens first and causes the nail to dig deeper, right? Pretty obvious, pretty obvious. We can also consider, though, that each action in and of itself is a cause. So one of the effects of action is that each action has an equal and opposite reaction. So when we start to master this law in a specific field, like this guy, right, we become greats. Even a basic use of a little bit of this cause and effect, we can become competent and we can really define our own trajectory of our life here on the planet. But how do we do this? We take actions, which is our cause, and we study the results. It's like a pretty obvious process that we do all the time on the outer world, right? We take whatever we did, we see what the effects are, we study the results, and then we change the action subtly, and we learn to modify our actions to create a more desirable result. And that will create conscious competence if we know about it, right? In any area of life, So often we do this and people literally create miracles. So Edison did this, or he's credited with the light bulb, right? There's some debate about that, but in his making it or remaking it of it, 10,000 tries it took him, but several patents were developed throughout the whole entire process. So it wasn't like it took 10 times to get a good result, just 10,000 to get the one he wanted, but hundreds, if not thousands of patents came from that experiment. And here we see a baseball player with refined skills to hit a speeding ball coming at him. Like, come on, most people, like if I saw a ball coming at me as fast as that thing probably is, I would probably not swing the bat. I probably would step away. So when we determine these causes that create the effects we desire, we can define the trajectory of our lives. So most of all of us have done and continue to do this in some areas of life. So, I could say I'm preaching to the choir. You're like, yes, I know all this stuff, obviously, but here we are with a reminder about it, right? And we're going to link it into the other laws. So it's important to bring this to view. And if there's things you disagree with it, write them down. Like, put them in the comments. I want to know where you're disagreeing with me on this stuff. I'll grow from it. So there are some areas, though, we just seem to always make mistakes, the ones where we want more growth. And so how do we change it? How do we change? Well, we have to take not just applying this law to the physical world, but we have to bring it into our inner world. So most people overlook how to use cause effect in their spiritual world, because it's really a world before space and time, right? There's no objects bouncing off of each other, but there's energy, right? There's lots of energies that we can perceive. And sometimes we call them vibes or vibration. And sometimes we get more specific and we call them thoughts, and we call them emotions, we call them feelings. And we consider that these are the spiritual laws that are in effect beyond space and time. We got to actually consider that maybe the actions we took in the physical world are not the original cause. The cause is actually from the action. The cause is actually from the thinking that we were doing, the vibration that we were in, the emotional state we were in, all these things that are beyond the physical world, right? So that's why we could actually replicate the exact same thing as somebody else and have a different result. So the thought, the feeling, the emotion that we had prior to the action is its original cause. And if any of these are out of alignment, it's going to make our actions misguided, and their effectiveness is going to be diminished as a result. And I know I'm repeating some of this, but it's very important to put these pieces together, because just as we improve our results in the external world, and then we apply that same methodology to our internal worlds, then we start to see like a grand change in how reality unfolds. I mean, this means we retrace our steps to what we were thinking, what we were feeling, what was our intention. And with these pieces of information, we can start to align ourselves again, creating a deeper sense of harmony and peace. So as we do this, our actions become more impactful. Our words match our deeds, and we are what we say we are. And that's a powerful gift, and it's rare. It's rare these days. So let's look at some scripture here with the law of cause and effect. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. What plant is the cause? The bounty is the effect. And then there's another one that I want to share with you. So that one, it feels like it just slaps me so much in the face. I don't even want to like try to break it down for you. I think you will get the message. Cause, it literally says cause and effect, right? What we plan. I'm going to stop there. Another one that I wanted to read to you guys here is from Proverbs 4:26-27. Ponder the path of your feet and remove your foot from evil. He doesn't use, there's no use of cause and effect here, right? But we're talking about a path, and we're talking about some action, right? The feet are obviously moving, right? And he's telling them to remove them from evil. So what I thought was really interesting about this, and why I wanted to share it, is that they start with the physical objects here, right? We're in the physical world. I mean, there's the pondering aspect, right? So we have a little spiritual here. We're thinking, right? But the path, what are we pondering? We're pondering this physical thing, the path and your feet. And we're removing our feet, not from the path, the physical thing, but actually a conceptual thing here, the evil thing. And to me, this just ties in to use this methodology of cause and effect in the spiritual realm. So whether we're sowing the seed of a plant or an idea of our mind, we're creating something. We're the cause, and there will be a predictable effect. So that's a very powerful way to look at it. You know, another thing that gets tied to cause and effect a lot today is karma, right? It's very much like cause and effect. What do we say? What goes around, come around. We get back what we put out, stuff like that, right? Ironically, though, the word karma is Sanskrit for action. So it's not that full cycle. Karma is not that full cycle, but we can discuss that another day. But this is the concept of cause and effect as we talk about it in the ethers. So, but if there is one thing that I really would like you to take away from today, it would be this. It would probably be this. And I'm going to put it up front here. We got a little bit more to go over, but we are 100% responsible for owning our inner world. And when we do that and we make it harmonious by taking that responsibility, we have a collective impact. And this loop really breaks down ways that the universe is actually communicating to us through these different laws. So we just look at these pieces and it will show us the path. It's like torches. So if we think of for a moment, though, that just any one of us, each of us, taking that 100% responsibility and owning it changes the entire world. Just think about what that could be like if you were to make that vow right now. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to just take a deep breath into that. Just so beautiful what we can do together here. So we're going to return to the scene. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what I see here. And Brendon did an awesome job of breaking it down. And, you know, I'm going to just break down a few points on the feedback loop of what's happening in here. So we're going to start by just observing physically what's happening. We did a little bit before, but I see two people, it looks like they're having a disagreement, right? We see lots of body language. We can see how words are said and used and like bouncing off each other. They literally impact each other. We can see the breaking of connection with the breaking of eye contact and the facial things. And we can pretty much see they're not in the spirit of oneness. There's some sense of disharmony. There's something's not perfect. So how do we resolve this, right? Do we tell them to stop moving their faces and making hand gestures? Do we just be like, yo, stop talking, just stop, just don't, nobody talk, right? And that's what happens, right? We leave the room in an argument. Somebody leaves the room. If their argument doesn't get settled there, a lot of times somebody gets to the point where I'm not having this conversation anymore, and then they storm out, and the other person's like, don't let the door hit you on the way out. Or they say, no, don't go, or something happens. But the issue is not resolved. The people have separated, but the issue is still there, right? But nothing's happening anymore. So we've done that strategy for generations. We've done it for generations. And that doesn't bring us harmony. It brings us disconnection. So we have to listen deeper. And we can do this with the law by listening to ourselves. So if we look at this situation with the law, and we're going to walk through this together real quick, right? So we want law one, divine oneness. Is there harmony, divine oneness? Well, no, there's definitely a lack of harmony in some way, but there's something that's harmonious about the two of them, right? Is there a vibe? There's definitely a vibe. And is it matching or mirroring? I would say absolutely it's matching and mirroring. And what are some of their actions? Do they match the vibe, right? So where is the disharmony? I would say in the communication, in the correspondence, the verbal and physical. So in Brendon's example, you never listen to me, right? That's his belief, right? And not Brendon's necessarily, this guy's belief in the character that he played earlier, to remember, right? That's actually his belief, is that she's not listening to me. But the moment that one of these beliefs pop up into our mind, that's a reminder, like, boom, time to look at that belief. And before I look at that belief, well, while I'm looking at the belief, I'm going to pause. I'm going to surrender to this situation, right? I'm not going to be too busy not listening because I'm too busy projecting, right? I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to assume that I might be wrong for a second, or I need to look at things from a different perspective, because the universe is telling me something and it's slapping me in the face so hard with the person that I love the most. And when I look at that, it will speak to us and show what brings up inwardly. So when we realize that we're that cause of the disharmony, we check our own vibe, we harmonize our internal correspondence and our messages, our messages from the source, right? The thoughts, the emotion, the feelings internally that we have. So we start taking significantly different actions and saying different things, or maybe not saying nothing at all when we're using this. So we're going to look at a quick example here of two people in love. Relationships was a hot topic when we did a poll for this series. So we're just going to apply it to relationships, right? So we observe what's happening with these two individuals. We see them gazing lovingly. We see lots of body language, but we can see that there's silence and stillness, which like completely lengthens the moment. They appear to be in the spirit of oneness, but if we want to replicate authentic love and connection in our own lives, do we force ourselves to sit and stare at each other in the eye? Like, yes, there is eye gazing and it's very effective, but is that like really how we want to be able to get along? I mean, maybe it's some part of the methodology, but that's not where I'm taking you. Because if we look in this situation here, right? It's not the water, it's not the beach, it's not the weather that's making the moment, it's them, right? There's harmony, there's oneness, there's a vibe. It's a matching vibe, very clear, right? What are their actions, right? They're just gazing at each other. And what does that cause? Is it the wine? I mean, I've seen plenty of drunk people on the beach before that weren't happy and crying. Is it what they're thinking about? Like, what do you think she's thinking? Do you think she's thinking about her ex-boyfriend from college? Probably not, unless he was her ex-boyfriend in college. Is he thinking about the friend that he didn't pay a debt to? No, he's not. Probably not. Is she worried that he's thinking her makeup is smudged, or about the pore on her face or something? No, they have surrendered their ego, their guilt, their shame, their grudges, their insecurities, all over their demons over to love. And now when we do the same, even if it's just for a moment, when we can truly, deeply trust in ourselves, then we can trust in another. that we can let go of the biases and the stories that we tell ourselves. And this feedback loop exposes all of these stories. And when we expose them and we clear them, then we see the godliness and the humanness of each person before us. And that's when we understand, like, an expression like, who I see is who I be. And we've all had that moment. We've all had that moment. Some of us, maybe more than others. My experience is by using this entire structure here, this feedback loop, I can actually expose these beliefs and experience more of them than most people I know. And this is what helped me do it. So that, coupled with actually doing the belief hacking. So I mentioned to you guys, there's a empowered life course that we have. So if you are interested in that, I'm going to give that to you guys for 50% off. So if you go to evolvelife.com, you could just throw PTA in the PTA1 in the coupon, PTA1 in the coupon, and you get 50% off of that. And if you have questions about it or whatever, DM me. If you really need a discount, cheaper, let me know. So that's what I wanted to bring to you guys is come and look at this entire feedback loop and use it and apply it to different areas of your life so you can create more flow, harmony, ease, and grace. God bless you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Iain. I've really just been taking this all in, enjoying the presentation. You do a wonderful job of just explaining things in a very easy to digest manner. And yeah, we've got a lot of comments just on the feedback chat. And thank you to everyone who's just been, again, here to be able to take this all in. And yeah, if there's anything else you want to just kind of like chit chat about while we're here, more than welcome to do so. River's just kind of asleep right now. So yeah, I'm here to kind of like hang out, and we'll just kind of reflect on what we've learned today and go from there. One of the things I did really like is that, you know, with what we were talking about, should we turn the screen share off? I guess we can probably do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
we'll do that. Yeah, one of the things that I really like with what you're talking about is that, you know, it really just helps bring more awareness to our behaviors so that we can kind of like have that ability to be the observer, so that, you know, when we, as the example that we have, you know, instead of like, it becomes a meditation where next time you find yourself maybe in a dispute or an argument or a place of frustration, a place of reaction, that can almost become a trigger where it's like, oh, okay, like that resonance becomes an opportunity for you to be able to say like, okay, hold on, let me take that break, let me take that moment, step back, let's observe, you know, like something else is going on here, right? Either they're projecting or I'm projecting, something that we can, you know, see from a bigger perspective, and then from that, you know, be able to change our actions, be able to resolve something. I think it's so easy in a lot of cases where our emotions will take the front seat. And I think in a lot of cases, you know, that comes from maybe our upbringing or the people we're around. And you know, you might have grown up around people who, you know, like you would see them get really frustrated and angry, and then that would just be their driving emotion towards all of their actions. But without that example of mindfulness, you know, it's something where what we're doing here is a lot of like kind of like deprogramming. But yeah, I really like that. You know, it's that simple action of being able to respond opposed to react. And I think for all of us, next time we find ourselves in that place, you know, it's a chance to actually be able to say like, oh, like this is like, now I can actually like apply what we were learning here today. You know, how is like the law of correspondence applying to what's happening right now, and how can we, you know, create a different scenario out of it opposed to just repeating the same patterns. So yeah.
I'm really glad that you got that out of it. And you know, that's a big piece of the layer here, is first of all just accepting that we are in this kind of illusion, and that we're actually a big creator of it, and being able to stay in that oneness and see our role in this. And the more that we can see our role, the easier life gets. Like we see celebrities and superstars, they know their role, right? They know their role, and that's why they're celebrated in celebrity. And then there's the others, and they didn't get handed the role or the method of being able to determine what their role is, to be able to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Instead, we got the beliefs, like you said, based on our upbringing from generations of things that has gotten better in many ways, but other ways, maybe not so much. So.
Yeah. And it's interesting, especially for yourself and I, as fathers and everything like that, for us as parents, like this is something where a lot of what we're talking about, it's not just something where it's like, oh, okay, like these concepts might help you, like manifest more abundance in your life and everything like that. But it's also like, this is about, like becoming a better cosmic citizen. It's about responsibility, instead of just being caught up within the patterns of the preconditioned society that we're in. It gives us a chance to reprogram things from a place of conscious awareness, and then from that, it's like, that's what I want to do. Like, I want to be able to set that example for my kids, so that if he ever sees daddy getting frustrated when he's older and he's able to comprehend it, what's he going to like, how is he going to observe me in that situation? And at the same time, I think it's also important to not kind of have this, because sometimes, I feel like this, and again, right now, for those of you in the YouTube chat, please feel free to leave any questions. We'll just chit chat here for a little bit. We still got some time. But what I was going to say, it's I think at the same time, what we're not saying here is this idea that, we shouldn't get angry. We shouldn't get frustrated. We shouldn't get sad. We shouldn't get mad. More so, it's just being able to change the relationship so that when those emotions do arise, instead of just kind of becoming them, we become the observer of them. And then we almost get curious, where it's just like, well, why? Or where is this coming from, and how is this teaching? Like, and like you said, like it's the emotion, it's the energy and motion arising. So, yeah.
What that brings to mind for me is this virtue of temperance, right? Yes, so when we have that emotion of anger, we're observing it. We're not reacting to it. We might see a hammer that we want to throw at someone, but we don't. Right? We can see it, we experience it. And instead we say, okay, what is this anger for me? And actually, anger is a gift. Anger is a great gift because it brings things to my awareness that need to be looked at. That's why it hurts so much. Right? And that's the same thing with depression. It's a gift. And there's certain things I should do when I'm depressed, and certain things I should do when I'm angry. And there's certain things that I shouldn't do. Right? But actually, angry, depressed mostly do nothing.
Yeah. There's some questions here in the chat, and even just relative to what you were just saying. Kelly is asking any suggestions as to how we can raise our vibrations when we're living in times of huge stress.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I would say is, the easiest way to do it is to frame around it. So if we look at this word stress, it's got a bad connotation, but it's actually not bad. I might say distress would be bad if I'm in distress. And if I'm in eustress, it actually causes me to grow. So the easiest thing to do is actually take the connotation away that stress is a bad thing, right? And actually it won't cause distress or dis-ease in the body. So that's the magic trick, I think, way of doing it. However, having whatever it is that you love to do, whether it's meditation, yoga, painting, making music, singing, whatever it is you love to do, making sure you create time doing that, create that time for yourself doing it, because that will relieve any of the tension that's built up that makes it feel like it's distress. So I would just those are the practical ways that I would look at it.
Yeah. Just thinking about that for a second, I think it's interesting because, in today's society, we, like you said, we kind of, we don't really have much place for stress within our daily lives. It's not encouraged. Stress is not encouraged. If you're feeling stress, like, like watch your favorite Netflix show, drink alcohol, smoke weed, go to the club, whatever, avoid it at all costs. Take your soma, like Brave New World style and everything like that. But I think, like what you said, there's a really powerful paradigm shift where what if we actually start inviting in healthy stress. So that concept of de-stress versus eustress. Can you maybe give us some examples of what eustress would be? Because I know for one, and this is one I practice, would be something like cold showers, where it becomes a holographic thing. And if I can take a cold shower and endure the stress of that, it mentally prepares me for the little stresses of the day, sort of thing. But yeah, I'm just if there's any other thing about eustress, because I feel with what Kelly was asking, that'd be a great way to kind of add some applicable actions we can take.
Absolutely. And actually mentioned it a little bit in the slide here regarding if somebody wants to be business driven, and they actually will put themselves in the situations that make them feel uncomfortable so that they could overcome them. Yeah. Right. So it's actually happening in a physical way and a spiritual way, but now I'm doing it with that intention to feel uncomfortable. Like if I know that the gift of feeling insecure is myself revealing something that inside of me is not secure, and now I know that about myself, then I have a chance to overcome it. But if I avoid even having conversations with people, I won't be growing from it. So again, it comes around that frame side of it. But of course, doing the ice baths, like that's a physical way, and we see it in a physical scale, and how that even use lifting weights, right? I could do it too much and strain myself, and that'd be distress, right? And if I'm going to be straining myself, it's probably because I wasn't present anyway. That's why I got hurt. If I stayed and made sure my form was there and everything else, I'm not getting hurt. So those are some other ways for distress versus stress. Even the growth marks on your body. If you got that was eustress.
Yeah. And people often forget using the weightlifting as a metaphor for life. With weightlifting, what we're actually doing is we're tearing the muscle. We're literally creating like a fissure within the muscle, but then that fissure is like filled with new light, with new matter. And then that's where the mass gets built from. So it's like, what can we do to kind of like create those little spaces that actually invites in new growth? I mean, opposed to, just stagnation and just like apathy and, just kind of getting into the numbing process. I really like the idea where it's like, what if more people kind of adopted this mindset where they're just like, what can I do today that's going to challenge me? Like to make that just as common as what am I going to eat for breakfast? What am I going to do after that? What am I going to do today to challenge myself in a healthy way?
Yeah. I don't know if you ever heard of Sarah Blakely. She created Spanx. She's a woman, a billionaire, like amazing mom, drives a minivan, and she said exactly that when she was growing up, that her parents, his father made him play a game where when they got home from school, every day, how did you fail today? Where did you screw up? And then they celebrated it with a high five.
There you go.
So it never became this thing that for some reason society, I don't know who society said it to me.
Yeah.
It made me think that.
Yeah, where we avoid failure at all costs. That's like there's a very prominent leader that I've been fortunate enough to spend some time with, and he's within the Canadian military, and he's this is a man that's led people into battle in Afghanistan and things like that, and he gives a bunch of like public speaking. But one of the things that's kind of like within his book and stuff he talks about is this idea of fail forward. To like, that's the idea. It's like you fail, you learn, you get better, and you kind of move through these cycles without having to necessarily always repeat them, sort of thing. And that's even within, part of what we're talking about here with the law of correspondence, where it's like, if you don't learn the lesson, the universe is going to bring it back. So it's like, how are we, and maybe that's more of what we'll be getting into next week or next event as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's, again, it comes all back to that framing of it. And we have something that shows us what's going on in the world, cause and effect wise, how our actions have these results the same way we do in our external worlds. So we have that in our inner world. And if we if we fail to actually do anything with that information, then we've just given up all of our responsibility and all of our power.
Yeah.
And that is clearly the place it takes action and initiates, is in the spiritual realm before in this physical realm. So we gotta use this that just as much as we use it in the outside world to get good at, whatever it is that we do.
Yeah. Kind of going back to the simple phrase, is this happening to you or for you? And that's and I think in any situation, it's really just the mindset. Oh, how can I make this for me? What can I learn from, in any situation? We have the choice to see something from a disempowering perspective or an empowering perspective, relatively speaking. So
yeah, absolutely.
Cool, man. Well, it's been awesome just hanging out with you. I'm sure we could chat, for quite a while longer. We're almost at 2 hours now. Is there anything else you want to touch base upon before we wrap up this episode and remind people about what's coming up next episode?
Yeah, actually, I mean, I'll do real quickly here. We're just gonna dive into the next laws of the universe. We're gonna go up to the 7th law of the universe. Do you have the promo in front of you by chance of what it actually says on there to break it down
just
for them?
Like the written info for it of what's next?
Yeah, maybe
I'll read that off. Yes. So the next event that we have in the Deepening Our Connection with the Laws of Creation series with Iain Grae is on episode 3 on July 20th at 5 p.m. EDT. It's the same Zoom link for those of you who have the Zoom link and are registered on the website. And again, we'll be on Portal to Ascension on YouTube as well. And so the description for this one is from the core to the now, laws of compensation and attraction. Once we have deepened our connection to our core and have become familiar with the universal feedback loop, we can now begin to bring the heart of the matter to reality. We've awoken our consciousness to a new plane of creation. We have a deeper connection to the spiritual plane. It is time to bring what's calling from our core into physical reality.
So awesome. Thank you for reading that. So anybody that's on here, practice whatever you got from here, just put it into play. And also when you come back to the next one, feel free to come with some questions and everything in the beginning. And if I get the questions in the beginning, then I will actually be able to maybe get some answers fed throughout the broadcast and link anything together for you. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you, awesome. Don and Neil, for having me on Portal to Ascension.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again for sharing, again, not just your knowledge, but your wisdom. And I think that's the best part is, you can tell that where Iain is sharing from, it's not just something he's read in a book, but it's something that he's applied and lived and experienced through his life. Hence, again, that's the wisdom of it. Thank you again to everyone so much for your comment and your feedback in the chat. Reminder, Iain's links are in the info for this video on YouTube, which might just be the easiest way to be able to connect with them. Through there, you can find his personal Instagram as well as the Instagram for My Evolved Life, and as well as Iain's programs. And again, that's the Samcart link. So just check out the YouTube info there and you'll see those as well. And Iain, remind them again what the promo code, does that apply to the Samcart as well?
Yeah, that applies to that. So it's PTA1, the number 1.
PTA1, perfect. And if you guys ever have any questions, even just about the promo code or whatever, I'm sure they can reach out to you through direct message on the My Evolved Life page. Would be the best place, I assume.
Yeah.
Cool. Perfect. All right. And for those of you, if you guys ever want to connect with me, my info is in there as well. You can find me at Mystic Spider-Man. And I'll be back here with Iain for the next event on, again, July 28th. And thank you again so much, everyone, for joining in. So Iain, any closing words? And I think we're done after that.
No, just thank you for having me. Thank everybody for coming. And I hope that this adds a little more flow and ease and grace and harmony in your life. See you next show.
Awesome. Thank you again, everyone. Stay tuned to Portal to Ascension for more awesome events, and we will see you guys next time. We'll end the Zoom room now. All right. Much love, everyone.